love those student emails, right? So if you're interested in being on our sort of little MailChimp email list, which goes out maybe every 2 or 3 weeks with news about what's going on at BAMA, I know some of you find out about things you go, how come I wasn't informed? So we're trying our best to inform you. If you want to add yourself to that email list, there is a pad over there, a yellow pad. So print your name and your email address, and we will add that. And that's being put together by Lynn Volansky. We love her. She's doing our social media this term. So as we get started, I do need to thank a few people. First, Alex Wiesenfeld, our former chair, and Nicole Bell, our new vice chair of photography. And yes, and Elizabeth Prater. And Elizabeth Prater, our instructional assistant in photography. Yay, Elizabeth. And a lot of other people that I'm probably forgetting to thank. By the way, all of our faculty and these three are outstanding artists in their own right, and we're all thrilled to have an outstanding artist that got to speak to you. I also want to thank all the faculty of BAMA. I want to thank the LACC College Foundation, which underwrites this lecture series, and I would like to thank Ian Roberts, the graphic design student, graphic designer who makes our posters look good. Yay, Ian. And I'm most excited, of course, welcome to BAMA and welcome to LACC College, an exciting presence in the contemporary art world, Todd Gray. We are incredibly lucky and grateful that you're with us. And I personally have admired Todd Gray's work for a very long time and his contribution to Southern California art sort of milieu. And this past summer I was in New York City and he totally rocked the Whitney Biennial. But I am not going to introduce Todd Gray. I'm going to pass that honor along to Nicole Bell. And Nicole, come on.
We'll just keep it like that. I just want to plug the fact that Todd is an alumni of LACC. So did work here before and then transferred to Calarts. And then got an MFA after that and went on to amazing great places. But I just that is obviously he's amazing. We're thrilled to have him, but I'm also very excited to have him as an alumni of the program. And that is all I will say because I will let him speak for himself and sing his own praises. So thank you.
Thank you.
Start with the lights on.
Oh, I think we can take it down low.
Okay, yeah.
So thank you for having me. Again, I haven't been back here since 19th Florida. It's really an honor being here. And wow, it's amazing. You know, I was in that seat back in the day. So let me get started. This is one of the first, God, what? I knew I was going to be a photographer because I couldn't draw. My drawing looked like poor stick figures. And so my mother could draw like really well. And I couldn't, so it wasn't until I was in junior high school, until I was in high school, I picked up a camera and I could actually make a picture. And that's how I got into this game, and I fell in love with photography. And then I decided to pursue art. So I went to Calarts. Between Art Center and Calarts, this is 1973, 74, and Calarts went out. So, right when I got out, I gave you that backstory, because here I am, 1970, you have like familiar faces. Now, here I am in 1977, I just got out of Calarts and I can't get exhibited. And I thought, wow, man, some other people who got out of Calarts got exhibitions. And I was really angry. And so I decided to, I had an epiphany. I said, you know what? It seems like the boxing match was the equivalent of gladiators back in the Roman Empire. And then you had to fight for your life to sort of have a normal life or have a free life. And I thought, wow. I was thinking, you down. And I wanted to lash out. And the only way I knew to lash out was pictorially. So what I did was I went to boxing matches and I did pictures of boxers. And then I made, these are about 5.5 feet tall. And I put them, build corporate buildings. And so I made them one, so, you know, the image, they're equal. And it's sort of me venting out all this anger. And it was really, really, it was very healthy for me. Because I would come home from the studio, come into the studio, not getting work and other things, and start drinking some tequila and just sort of going down further down the hole. And then I said, you know, I'm going to do something, make an image, and sort of like put the energy pictorially. And then that wasn't enough either. I thought, since galleries weren't showing it, I said, screw it, I'm going to put it on the street. So I put this work on the street. And this was right before the Olympics in 1984. And then I made a press release. And I sent it out to LA Weekly with a couple of pictures. I just made a press release, took a couple of snaps like this, put the location of where it was, and they published it. And so, what am I trying to say? If, you know, if a door doesn't open, create a door and walk on it. You know, because that's one thing I learned. Because it seems like when I would follow the rules, I would kind of get left out. And so I had to make my own rules. And it was real important to me, and I would like splash paint on it. And you know, I was looking at Basquiat and stuff like that back in the day. And I just really wanted a raw image. And I was really rebelling against all my photo education, which was these perfect prints, made 4x5 and all the grades and the proper zone system and everything. And I would rip it, rejoin, you know, so I'd rip it, rejoin it, splash paint on it, get a spray pen. I was like, you know, going against my education, going against training, because I saw that also as a way to limit me. But fortunately, I really bought into what's called critical thinking. And through critical thinking, you analyze what is going on. You analyze, you try to sort of work backwards and identify a problem, identify the components of those problems, and then you come up with a solution. And so it was through this process that I came up with this series of work, and that's how pretty much I've been rolling ever since, is some form of critical thinking. So that's, whenever you hear this idea of critical thinking in your classes, seek out more information, because that is a way, it's one of the best ways to counteract propaganda, one of the best ways to clarify your own thinking process. Because a lot of our thinking is inherited from our parents, from our religion, from our peers, you know, but it's you, it's your thought process, who you are, what's in your heart, where your center is. How do you hear that and separate it from the noise? Critical thinking is a tool that helps you separate the noise to find out where your center is and go from there. Okay, so you can tell I was an educator. I taught at Calarts, at Cal State Long Beach for about 18 years. Taught at UCLA, taught at Art Center College of Design in the photo area, taught at Claremont Colleges, Florida College, taught at Otis College, I was always called a freeway flyer. I would teach in the morning at Pasadena, and then in the afternoon I would go to Westwood and teach, eat my lunch in the car, and then I'd be there at 7 o'clock for the evening sessions at Otis College. 3 places one day. Yeah. Okay, so then fast forward. This is a series of work. Shaman Series. This is the Shaman Series. And basically what it was is I tried to imagine, okay, here we go, making work on the fly from my imagination. My wife had the camera. I would just put shaving cream on my face and mold it. Couldn't breathe. You know, I only had about 30 seconds. Then I'd have to wipe it off so I could breathe. And I'm just sculpting it as much as I can to see what happens. But I wanted to be surprised. I wanted the unknown to appear. So I can't see it. She's just taking shots of it. And this is some of the stuff that will come out. Oh, and I smoke quite a bit. Because I wanted to see how it feels. This is pure experimentation. So on, I think on 2 occasions, I smoked quite a bit because I wanted to see if that would affect. Well, it certainly affected my eyes. But then as you can see, what I was trying to do was get out of my rational thought process. here in Western Academy, in the education, in the how we learn. It's from Socratic method. There's this whole. I mean, basically, our institutions are based upon a Greek model from a 2,000 year text, and that's what's happening here. And I was thinking, how do I get outside of this Greek model? How do I get outside of this European model of thinking and creating? Because really, it's this model that has subjugated me historically. It's this model that says I'm other, that I'm less than, that I'm dark-skinned, and therefore I'm not worthy, and I can't be trusted. All these other ideas that come packaged into white superiority, which is, just sort of a given when you think of this idea of manifest destiny. I'm sure, hopefully you all know that. Remember manifest destiny from your history courses? We can go to the Philippines and take that over because, they don't have Christianity, and we are divine to rule. We are divine to rule the peoples of the world. We are the chosen. That's manifest destiny. Well, I'm sure if there is a professor, is there any professor of history in here? That's manifest destiny. And so it's this idea that we are not, it doesn't recognize everyone else's humanity. It only and you can even say any place, any tribe will have a form. They think that their tribe is the best, their culture is the best. It's not limited to Europe. It's part of this argument. What I'm saying, being a low-conscious human being, where you don't recognize someone's humanity, and you think the only way there is the correct way is my way. And so, however, in Western culture, it's writ large. It's written by Europe, and with colonialism and all this other stuff. But it's pretty much what I think. It's low consciousness human activity, low consciousness human being. And so, I wanted to get out of that and make artwork that was just, I couldn't see it. So there's a guy named Carl Jung, J-U-N-G, and he said that there's something called the id. The id is your personality before you're culturalized. That's a mouthful. The id is who you are before you are whatever name you are given, before you've been formed by your parents. There is something called an id. Some people will call it the unconscious. Some people will call it something else. Some people say when you get really drunk or something, your id starts to come out because it's not filtered and so forth. So it's your natural state of being, or your unfiltered, unmonitored state of being is your id. So I wanted to get to a point where I let my id make the work. And that's why I couldn't see it. That way I knew my conscious thinking, that Todd Gray wouldn't be driving this thing, but the id would be. So I do these. And right about this time, and then I did a series of works, because I really to me, this is my most, from the series, I think this is my most successful one. Why? Okay, I'll tell you why. Because it mimics a classic Renaissance portrait. The turn of the body, the position of the head, and so forth. So therefore, it's gesturing to art history. Guys want to know a note right now? If you plan to be a full-time artist, don't sneeze and snore. Don't sneeze during art history. Okay, I slept through art history. But what I did do is I went back and I went through the library and I got books and I created my own with yellow tabs. I created my own, smoker. Oh, yeah. I created my own pathway of who I liked, who I didn't like. Those are the people I researched. I just didn't take the greatest hits. And guess what? The greatest hits are written by the conquerors and the wealthy. History is written by the conquerors and the wealthy. There isn't history, there are histories. There's many, 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 many histories. So you got to sort of find your own history. And then, okay, here's a plug for a book. If you really want to get, oh God, I can't believe I just did that. If you really want to expand your notion of politics, of self, of how society and culture is structured, read A History of the Howard Zinn.
A People's History.
Yeah.
People's History of
The United States.
the United States.
Mm-hmm.
People's History of the United States. Your mind won't be blown. your mind will be blown, and you'll see how valuable you are as a citizen of this country, irregardless of your racial or cultural background. Irregardless, you will see through history how other than the 1% folks are treated. So I highly recommend that. Highly recommend it. People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. So, am I talking too fast? Is this, am I?
You're beautiful.
Go on. Okay, so let's see. So here we are. Okay, doing this. Now let's get to the real stuff. So then I decided to work. I wasn't getting shown enough. I wasn't getting played, right? My background. Oh, okay, I'll give you that a little later. So here I am, I'm in academia, and I'm exhibiting and stuff, but my voice isn't loud enough. And one thing my parents told me is that as a man of color, I have to put something out there that nobody else can do. Because if there's a person from, let's call it dominant culture, if there's a person from dominant culture and yourself for the same job or for the same exhibition, 9 times out of 10, you're going to go with the person with dominant culture. Why? Because we tend to select people that look like us, right? And so that's just a human tendency. So therefore, don't strive to hit the norm. Strive to create something that only you can create. Therefore, they have to go to you. So I use that model in my professional. I used to be a music photographer, and I shot over 100 album covers. I directed music videos and so forth. And I have a whole history in music photography. I use that to get work in the music business. And so even in art, I sort of use that idea. I will go through about 6 levels of ideas before I hit the one. I never accept, rarely do I accept my first idea. I don't, okay, I'll give you another method. This is what I do. I'm gonna like, woo, because we're LACC here in the room. There's something called automatic writing. It's a surrealist writing technique. So what do? You put your pencil or pen on the paper, or you guys are, but you don't stop. And you give yourself 3 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever kind of time. You don't stop. Even if it's gibberish coming out, you just don't stop. You just keep going. What this allows is your unconscious to appear. Many times you have ideas, but your ego will suppress it because we have a filter. Why? Because we don't want to appear stupid to ourselves. We don't want to be embarrassed by an idea. We don't want it to conflict with our own idea of self-concept. So this filter really is making us less and less unique. Because this filter is the filter of normalization. This filter is a filter is there because it wants us all to get along in the community. Am I going to like too far off? No. Okay. This filter wants us all to get along, and be part of the community, and yet, do this. So yes, we do want to get along. However, we want to also respect that which is individual to each of us. There is something rich and unique to each of us. And I think our job, especially in the creative arts, is to bring that out and let it flower and let it flourish to the maximum. And I think when other people see that, then they are inspired to do the same. Because otherwise, culture, which is consumer culture, wants us to be a person that fits in about 3 or 4 categories, and it wants us to fit in 3 or 4 categories because then we are easy to market to. They only have to make 2 brands of toothpaste because they've already conformed, they already know that we've conformed to a certain degree. So it's real, you cannot, so when you say you want to be normal, oh my gosh, you don't want to be normal. I'm not saying you want to be freak of the week, but believe me, what's called normativity is handcuffing your brain. Normativity is handcuffing your desire. Normativity is robot. I am a robot. So, it's too late? What?
Okay. No, I was watching Bill Gates' Mind on Netflix, and part of the intro was him getting thrown in the face either with a shaving cream, and it reminds me of this. It's almost like, it's supposed to be a shocking, embarrassing moment, but it's almost exactly what you're talking about, where someone did this to him, and you're just like, now I'm a piece of artwork, and now I'm a sculpture. And his interview afterward was, of course they're mad at me, because I'm the baller, I'm Bill Gates. So I thought you did a really good job in, maybe someone, you threw it on yourself.
Well, I threw it. I'm challenging whiteness. I put a coat of whiteness on myself. And so there's another layer of nuance. What you're saying, yes, there's the gesture, which is comedic, and somewhat embarrassing, or it's an insult in culture to get a pie in the face. But I actually used shaving cream for a couple of reasons. One, whiteness, as to get through into culture in this society, you have to be white to get to the highest order. So that is the narrative, the dominant narrative. And then the other thing I wanted to say was shaving cream is what makes us civilized. We are animals. Shaving cream is to remove our fur, and to have this marker of what, I'm a civilized human being, look. And so the shave is to get us away from our animal and to be this thing called a Homo sapien human being, but we're still damn animals. I mean, you really think we're damn animals. We do everything that the animals do. Everything that a dog does, we do. So that's what I wanted to talk and think about too. But what I am really pleased about is that the work is open enough that you can reflect your thinking and it can stimulate that thought because, that's in there too. And that's, so it's what's called polymorphous. There are many forms of thought in what I'm doing. I'm going to go to the next slide. If you have a question and it burns, and I appreciate that, let's do it. Let's let's not fall asleep. It's definitely you're not. So then what I did, I'm doing some research, and I was in Germany, and I was thinking about the Congo. There's a guy named Leopold, King Leopold from Belgium. He was responsible for the genocide, the killing of 2 million Africans in the Congo between 1895 to 1902, something like that. Why? Because rubber, all of the rubber plants that were in the Congo, and then this is during the later stage of Industrial Revolution, rubber, everything, tires, wheels, rubber. It was huge, rubber. So, but King Leopold is so crazy. If you were an African, and this is Belgium, if you're there, and you didn't make your rubber quota from extracting it from the tree, they cut off both of your hands, and you lose that. But it's okay because there's a Roman Catholic priest right there to make sure you go to heaven. And so the rationale was, they're savages, but at least they'll get into the kingdom of heaven. So with the blessings, this is all documented, with the blessing of the Roman Catholic Church, who were side by side with the Belgian army, they were helped the genocide of 2 million Congolese, but it's okay because we saved their souls. You know that I'm being sarcastic as hell. As we recognize 400 years of slavery. I hope you know that is this year, 2019. -4 is what, 16, 19? Yeah, that's when we first came over. So, I wanted to go to the Congo, and I was talking, this is how stuff happens. I'm in Germany, I'm a little drunk, a lot of drunk. And I'm talking, and I'm in an art opening, and I'm talking to this woman, she goes, what are you doing next? And I just read about Leopold, and I'm like, this crazy stuff, like, how insane is that? What kind of business model kills the employees? You know what I mean? How does that increase output? But to read anything about King Leopold, wow, all I can say is it mystifies the mind. So, I said, you know what I'm going to do? I said, I'm going to get primates from the Congo, and I'm going to slice them with photographs to critique King Leopold, sort of use technology. Because he had guns and so forth. I'm going to use the photograph as a weapon, like a guillotine, to slice it through. And she goes, that's crazy, we can't do that. That's how you sinking. And I said, just from her accent, I said, damn it, I'm doing it. So then I did some research and I found out it's impossible to get taxidermed animals or get animals from the continent of Africa and get them in here. And I thought, damn. And I thought, wait a second. This is imperialism. Let's look at home. So I started looking here, and I found out there was something called the California Missions. California Missions were the Jesuits who would put to work the first peoples of the states, and they would have to work these farms, and they would try to convert them. They would bring their diseases from Europe, and they would die. They did all of that stuff that was happening. You know, they weren't chopping off the limbs, but it was the same model. Indentured servitude, they didn't call it slavery, indentured servitude and all this stuff. Stealing the land, stealing the riches, with the Spanish army and the Roman Catholics and the Jesuits there, right with them. So I went to photograph all of the California missions, and what I also did was I would get an animal that was from that region, and I would have it, like this one was destined for a glue factory, and one was dead actually, and I would get these animals, they had to be from California, because I wanted that lineage. I wanted an animal to be witness, to be an animal to be surrogate, to be a surrogate for the first peoples that were there at that time. And I wanted to commit this sort of photo violence on this innocent creature. And what is the photo violence? Photography is a weapon, photography is a gun, photography can cause wars, photography is a weapon. And so I wanted to use that as a physical device and also talk about technology. So you have the sleek, the sleek finished photograph of the print, and then you have this animal to sort of talk about the violence of California missions, or to make people go, what the hell's going on? Then to read a little bit, to learn about that. So a lot of my work, hopefully it's puzzling, or makes you scratch your head. This is in Rotterdam at the port, and it's Hotel New York. This is where the Mayflower, the picture on the back is where the Mayflower docked before going to England and coming to the States with the Pilgrims. And so I have that and buffalo, who got decimated, who just got completely wrecked. So I'm using these ideas in the California Mission Series. Okay. All right, so that's a little taste of that. Any questions? Keep going. It's okay.
This is Dave for the cookies, people.
Oh, push it up like the cookies. Okay. I went to Ghana in 1992 with Stevie Wonder to shoot his album cover. So I was doing a lot of work for Motown back then. And before that, I was Michael Jackson's personal photographer from about 1979 to 1983. And I shot album covers for Gladys Knight, for Bill Withers, Bobby Brown, a lot of folks. Not Whitney, no. I see Whitney. Okay, Whitney came by the studio, and I was shooting the Don't Be Cruel package, Bobby Brown. And then Whitney comes by, and Bobby says, I'll be right back. The man disappeared for like 3.5 hours. And here I've got a makeup artist, a stylist, the whole 2 assistants, and we're just twiddling our thumbs, waiting for Bobby to come back. Okay, so that was, that's all I. Gotta laugh, gotta cry, gotta laugh, gotta cry. Okay. Oh, let me tell you the. Okay, then I'll tell you. All right. So I've already shot a bunch of album covers. I've shot album covers for years, and I'm at MCA Records. And I'm in a meeting with Bobby Brown's manager, who's white. And this is important. You'll hear in the story. And I'm in a meeting also with the vice president of Creative, who's also white. And then there's me. So there's three of us in this meeting. And so Bobby Brown's manager, this is for Don't Be Cruel. He's kicking off from New Edition, the boy band. Okay, and so they want him to establish this sort of like more mature, different, not be a boy band thing and be a Bobby, sort of sexy and all this crap. So the manager comes up and says, hey, this is what I want you to shoot, Todd. I want you to be in the desert. Bobby's wearing all black leather, right? On a black Harley Davidson. He's about to kick it off. And right down there is this black girl that he's just done, and he's like kicking off, and he's riding off in the sunset. Oh. And I look at the manager, then I look at the vice president of creative, and he goes, yeah, Todd, do that. And I'm thinking, oh, I can't do a picture. Oh, that's not me, I'm not gonna do that. But you can't say you're not gonna do that. And as I'm also saying, damn, I gotta pay that loan, that student loan back. I need this job. So I was in a rock and a hard place, and there's no bins in this, how do I make this work? So in those situations, what I do is I repeat everything. I just repeat everything. A, I'm buying time, and B, I'm letting my unconscious come up with something. I'm buying time and I'm letting my unconscious come up with something. So I said, so let me get it straight. Let's say I said, who's the biggest audience for Bobby? Is it like boys, girls, white girls, black girls? Oh, black girls, yeah. Okay, so let's have this black girl, and I'm going to Tower. There's a place called Tower Records back in the day. It was a big record store, and that's what we're aiming for, is product display. So I'm going to Tower Records, and I see this big poster of Bobby and this black girl. Ooh, Bobby looks fine. And I go over here and I see the record brag, and I go, ooh, Bobby, oh, it's sunset, and ooh, what's that? Yeah, he just did it like that. And I go like that, and I said, oh, that's what you want me to do. You're your target audience, right? He said, oh, raise the ship. Sorry. I didn't say squat. I brought it down to economics. And because I knew if I said this ain't right, I'm going to get kicked out the door. I dealt with numbers. I said, look, this is just a horrible marketing idea. And then they agreed. They said, well, what's better, Todd? I said, let's do everything you said and lose the girl. Let's just have Bobby in black leather on that. And then later they went with another idea, which was putting him all in Gianni Versace suit, or was it some stupid suit that cost $1 million, in front of a big slab of marble, for Don't Be Cruel. So I got the coolness of the marble and him just looking dapper, and I use warm-up filters, really warm glow and so forth. So that's just to say, critical thinking, you can turn something, you can still maintain your ethics and be in the lion's den with all the snakes. And you can still have your ethics come out, but you gotta think of what is the best solution. And so therefore, that was with critical thinking, I knew, hey, I needed to approach them through economics, not through ethics. Ethics wasn't gonna fly. Okay, so backward here, and now I'm in Stevie Wonder, now I'm done. And it's 1992. So, Stevie keeps telling me, Todd, you're from Africa. We're Africans. He says, there's a really big, this is for all that, what is that DNA search thing called? For spit and crap? This is 23andMe ancestry. This is way before, we're talking 1992. So we're imagining, Steve keeps saying, we're from here. There's a good chance because it's a straight shot to the Caribbean. It's a straight shot to the eastern seaboard from Ghana. It's called the Gold Coast. So he says, there's a good chance that we came from there. I said, oh, yeah, all right. And I said, all right, cool. Put it on my mind, just shooting. So I was with him for about 5 days in Ghana. So then I become a professor at Cal State Long Beach. Become a professor at Cal State Long Beach. And you can see how I segued the shaving cream to Ghana, right? So 10 years later, I'm a professor at Cal State Long Beach. 5 years later, years later. And I get my professorship, so I get sabbatical. So I go to Ghana because there's a big exhibition there. And NYU just opened up a campus. So I go to Ghana, and I fall in love. And I said, wow, this place is great. And I just gotten a California Community Foundations grant, so I used my grant money to buy 3 acres on the beach. My wife and I built a house and a little studio on the beach. It cost $17,000. 7 conversations. We built it out of mud. We built it out of bamboo, was a framework, and then it's called compressed, hand pushed in mud, and then a final coating of cement. And boom. And that was my, you know why? Because that was the first place I've been to where I was a majority person. I've been to Europe and all over, and I'm always a minority. And I said, what is it like to be invisible? Like, people don't, them just slide by me. You know what I mean? They'll just slide by me. I said, that's what I wanted to feel, and that's what I felt in Africa. And that was really nice being invisible, being in that kind of, and that's what I went for. And so these are some of this, yeah. And then that's my Photoshop ridiculousness. That's in the Studios of Harlem collection. Yeah, I think I've showed that one already, right? Okay, this one? No. So that, yeah, so you can see all the Photoshop stuff. And that's another thing, I went from film to digital, and that was really wonderful. I love going to film. And you know what I did? Oh, okay, my big one, all my greatest hits I'm gonna give you, which is my, how many people are photographers? How many people shoot digitally? How many people shoot a zillion and they come back and they have like a zillion pictures to deal with? Yeah, you know, yeah, right, you know you do. So anyway, what you do, if you are a high producing digital image maker, go into a database, go through really quick, and just click on a star. Anything that you notice, just click on it really quick, because you're sort of re-engaging the picture with your unconscious once again. As you can see, I'm a big proponent of immediate unconscious decisions, and then edit all those together and then take time and see what you like. But if something grabs your attention like that, just even a spark, chances are it's going to grab someone else's attention like that too, because we are human and we've come from similar cultures. So you want to be really sensitive to that and develop that sensitivity. So after that, I did this show, and this was the year Michael Jackson died. And so here I am, I got all my photos of Michael Jackson. I'm about to put out a book called Michael Jackson Before He Was King. And someone gave me the opportunity to exhibit it. And so I did this thing called the Gray Room, which is, so whatever, when he died, 2009, so this is 2009, this is it. And so you can see how I got these photos from my shaving cream, and then I cut them out, I put them on a board, and I put, so that they're three-dimensional, and they're, deformed. And because to me, there's like these, I call them ghost clouds. So there's ghost clouds. And then these are authentic Nigerian masks that are like, from like 200, 300 years old. Because I solicited, the gallery solicited a person who had a very serious collection of African masks. Because I wanted to basically put him back in the conversation of Africa. And that's it. I mean, I just want to, and it's a dark room, had the walls painted, because I wanted this somber quality, but this was important for me, is to put him in an African context. Because I feel really what he's making is African music. And that's, that was really important to me. Okay, so that's how it looked on a bigger thing. Now I'm going to move. Any questions? No, great. So now I'm going to move on to my portraits. How many, even painters should be, I did this commission for LA Metro. Artists, I did 180 artist studio visits, and I made portraits of artists in their studios. It was a 3-year commission. And these are some of the portraits. And this is basically how I worked for, I've shot a magazine album cover, magazine covers, all sorts of stuff before I went into art. And so this is where I could use my training and tell a story. So I'm just telling stories with visuals. And so you can see the visual story that I made, right now. And then what happened was all of these folks had done the images, rather works for the LA Metro, and it was submitted to the National Archive in Washington, D.C. So that was where all of these photos went. Classmate Jody Zahn. And then you can see I also try to use the environment to actually envelop the person, swallow the person. I kind of think of myself as a cinematographer when I'm making this work. For some reason, I think like movies and how I can tell a story in a frame, and how I can, and I'm a lover of surrealism. I mean, I think Magritte is just the shit. Magritte is just so happening, and the ideas of surrealism, the ideas of Dada, and also the ideas that fight against being normal. I mean, Dadaism, you know how Dada began after World War I? All these artists said, obviously, we are crazy as hell. Because look what we do, we get in the pit and we just kill each other, and we put gas and gas each other. We are totally insane. Dada was born. So all this art to really fight back to what was called rational thinking, because look where rational thinking has gotten us, to these little death matches called World War I. And then after that, Surrealism came to be, which also was a reaction against where rational thinking takes you and so forth. Oh, rational thinking in the capitalist culture, because it all comes about the money. You die because somebody wants money. And then they put us in the front lines because of the money, oil. Okay. Oh, this one. Yeah, I love this. And I love profiles. I think profiles are just a wonderful mechanism. And I mean, can you see my new one? Okay. Yeah, and light. Oh, this is, you know what I got? Okay, I'm going to tell, okay, photo people, you know what I got? There's this thing called an LED light. It's called a wand or magic wand or something like that. I have that on a light pole, and I take it to the light pole. My assistant is just up there, and so just there is a light coming on him. I am the king of cheap. I am the king of cheap. Because I said, no, you don't need a boatload of equipment. You don't need a boatload. You need some good thinking, some good idea. And then minimal light, you know why? Because necessity is the mother of invention. The less you have, the more you have to create and rely on your creative juices. I found when I had like big budgets to do stuff, it's like too much sugar, too much butter, too much everything. And it's like, just because by putting more stuff on the cake doesn't make it better. If you know what I'm saying, you like garlic, I'm gonna put a boatload of garlic on this. It'll taste like boatload good. So when you have less and less to deal with, I think it's really wonderful. Oh, there's a girl, Allison Sarr, Betty Sarr's daughter. Great exhibition at LACC County Museum. Oh, anyway, it's sharper on mine. You can tell that he does sound work. So that, okay. All right, now we're going, yay, 6:51. Oh man, I gotta get on my camel and ride. All right. Oh man, you guys are seeing what's next. There's no, that's not cool. There's gotta be reveal. There's gotta be like surprise. Now, Chuck Berry, Michael Jackson, a little village called Izu Izu in Ghana. So my current work, which started about 4 years ago, as a result of me quitting my professorship at Cal State Long Beach, I decided I wanted to go full-time at Cal State Long Beach. Okay, I wanted to go full-time at Cal State Long Beach. Why? Because I envied all y'all. Here I am teaching kids, students, young people, to be, to art, and they were having all the fun. You know what I mean? Like creating and doing things, and I said, damn, I want to get out. I want to have more fun. Because I'm like about to write the last chapter of my life story. So I early retired and just took a complete dive into the studio. And that's what I came up with. I combined the work, my archive. I studied with a guy named Alan Sekula. And Alan Sekula is a big fan of the archive. And I studied, I gotta give you a backstory. Are these stories boring?
No.
Is it, okay. And does it feel like I'm going, hey, what does it have to do? All right. Okay, now I'm gonna have to go back in time. That's now, that's the present. Now we're back in 1998, all right, Calarts. I tell my friend who's a fellow student of mine, Kathy Opie, I tell her, I mentioned casually that I used to be Michael Jackson's photographer. No, 87, dang, that was we're in 1988. And I tell her I was Michael Jackson's photographer. She tells Alan Sekula. Alan Sekula calls me into his office, and he goes, Todd, what is your master thesis going to be? I said, oh, I was going to do this, that. He goes, no, I think a better thesis would be for you to go into your archive of Michael Jackson work and do a photo text piece on the construction of race, class, and gender. And so then he says, to help you, I've put this list of books that I think would help you. About 20 books on this list. He says, so come back in about 3 months after you've read all these books, and we'll start discussing the project. Because don't you agree? And like, it's like, oh, I think it'll help you get a scholarship too, or at least partial. He didn't add that, but I kind of thinking, like when the head of the department thinks that strongly. So basically what I did what he wanted, and I did what I wanted. I had 2 final exhibitions because, okay, now I'm going to diss him. Because although I did his, I showed what I wanted in the student gallery, and he wouldn't sign my graduation papers. He says, until you do that Michael Jackson project, and now, what are we, 25, 30 years later, I am so happy he made me finish that project. Because I had never done any cultural studies, never did any African studies, never did women's studies, never did all this stuff. He had me read Toni Morrison, Stuart Hall, Du Bois, Cornel West, Bell Hooks. Anyway, all of these incredible, James Baldwin, all of these incredible thinkers, Michel Foucault, Deleuze-Guattari, all of these theorists and thinkers. So I had to deep dive into all this stuff. I could barely understand half of it. I could barely understand a third, right? But even a third, if you can get out of that, is something. Then I'm writing my thesis about the photographs. It's a photo text piece. And I was writing, Michael Jackson is obviously ashamed of his race as evidence to the instructions he would give me in the darkroom. He would constantly have me go in and light his face in the darkroom. That's a fact. And so I was showing that as evidence that he wanted to be lighter. Another thing was, like, makeup artists would come to me when I shoot them. They would say that Michael requested to have a much lighter base. Like, you put on the base and then you go and you do the fine tuning of the eyes and so forth. So his skin is this color, but he wanted the base more like that color. And she goes, damn, if I got to do that, I've got to really, I got to go out to the neck, I got to do all this other, and the amount of work, because it's not reflecting his color, is 3 times more. So basically, I'm going to take an hour and a half, or, instead of like 40 minutes to do makeup. I go, cool, whatever Michael wants, Michael does. But I was using these instances that he was ashamed of his African features. So I'm writing all this, and then a bomb goes off in my head. There's an author called Frantz Fanon. He's a black man. He's a psychologist. And he authored this treatise, or this idea called mental colonialism. So he was talking about when Western powers come in and they colonize you, first thing they do, nope, you can't speak your language. Second thing, nope, you can't practice your religion. Third thing, nope, you can't listen to your music. They eliminate all of your cultural history. So you're sort of in free fall, your identity is in free fall, and then they convince you that you are less than. Because you must be less than, because look, we just kicked your ass. And we got the guns. So clearly, we are a superior force, and clearly, you are inferior. And then what happens after a while, it's as much a physical campaign as it is a propaganda campaign to get in your head. And that's called mental colonialism. Because after a while, as Michel Foucault would say, there's something called the Panopticon Effect. Panopticon is where you have, I'm sure you've seen those movies where they're in a, what's it called, everybody's? Yeah, I know. And then in a prison, you build it around a centerpiece with glass, because then every cell thinks they're being watched all the time. So you can have one guard. That's a psychological effect. And so what happens is you monitor or you self-police. That's called the Panopticon Effect. Culture has put us as little prison guards in our own heads to monitor. Sorry?
Escape movie. Did you escape movie?
No.
Instead of already like when you said you lost.
It's similar.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure those things are in Hollywood too, because it's, anyway, you want to read up about that. Another thing that is part of the Panopticon Effect is normativity, where you want to fit in and be normal and so forth. So anyway, I have to go back. I took a road. I turned. Somebody help me. Where did I turn? So I'm writing this stuff. And then I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm pointing out at Michael, and I'm realizing, me too. I mean, my parents made us only speak Queen's English in the house. If we had any trace of black accent, they would get on us because they says, no, we want you to sound white on the phone so that you can get work. And that was just drilled in our head. And then one of the things that we would have, one of our nursery rhymes growing up, if you're white, you're all right. If you're brown, stick around. If you're black, step back. I started noticing all the messages that I was given when I was growing up. And then and my parents often told me, if you want to get ahead in this culture, you have to work twice as hard to get half as far. So I worked 4 times harder to try to get equal space, and Michael was determined to work 16 times harder to get to this space. And so that is, if you even buy into that, that means you bought into white supremacy. So I was shocked to learn that there was a part of me in my head that felt I was inferior. There was a part of me in my head that I was ashamed of. And it blew my mind that these books were telling me this stuff was in my head. And ever since, I've decided I'm going to make my work to talk about mental colonialism. To talk about these mental weapons that are used for us to denigrate ourselves or to hold ourselves back. And even, okay, so you're going, oh yeah, okay, well that's, you're black and so forth, and that's happening there, or you're of color and that's happening. Well, guess what, ladies? Same thing. Same thing where the tools and the control mechanisms of patriarchy are telling you you're less than, you should be in the home, you shouldn't doubt, you shouldn't speak up, you should always step back, you should let the man speak up first, and do all this stuff that is internalized. And then guys, fellas, I gotta say, we buy in that patriarchy unknowingly. Okay, now I'm gonna do a little side. To me, this is why I do this. I don't do this for this, I do this for this. Okay, I am 8 years old, 12 years old. There's this girl smoking, really dig her. Her name's Jade. No, Jody. I treated Jody like crap. 12 years old. Why? Because she was better than me at this. She was better than me at that. I couldn't stand. And what are you doing? But you know what I mean? I had a crush. I had a major crush. But I would treat her like crap at 12 years old because I had to prove that I was better than her or put her down whenever she got better than me. That was patriarchy working in my head, this idea of insistence that I had to be better than her. I didn't even know it. And here I am, someone that I cared for, putting down. Right? That's how subtle patriarchy is. So that's my little, we all have work to do. And it starts here. All right. Okay. So, yeah, talk to my wife. I'm working. So here we are. There's Chuck Berry, Michael Jackson, and then this thing, because I'm trying to put things in a historical context, that we came from Africa. We're not black. We have a place. We didn't come from black. So we are black and we are African. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm trying to get to and put him in this context. So I just would mash up, and there's this guy named Stuart Hall. Stuart Hall. I can't say it one time. Stuart Hall. Stuart Hall is a black Jamaican Brit who is the father of cultural studies. In the 1960s at a university in the United Kingdom, he invented cultural studies. So you would have women's studies, you would have Chicano studies, you would have Latinx studies, you would have black studies. You would have any of these studies without Stuart Hall. He started that whole area of academics. And so Stuart Hall is this brilliant man. And what he said to me is that power is hegemonic. Power is hegemonic. Hegemonic power means it's everywhere and it's all-encompassing. Okay, now I'll give you an example. Hegemonic power, let's say the fish is the subject, the hegemonic power is the water. You ask that fish, what's water? It doesn't know what water is. It's just doing its thing. Now, water holds the whole thing together, life and death. So, sort of carried out that. Guess what hegemonic power is with us? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, media. What you're getting on your screen, all those things, hegemonic power. Ideas of what is right, wrong, good, bad, affecting our emotions, affecting our value system. That's hegemonic power. Now, hegemonic power, you cannot overthrow. It's all-encompassing. And part of the power lies in its ability to name. Its ability to name. Because once it can name you, then it can vilify you. Then it can say, oh yeah, you're a demon, or oh yeah, you're great, or oh no, you're worthless, or oh, you're lazy, or oh, once it can name. So, in order to defy, or in order to resist hegemonic power, as I understand Stuart Hall, you have to be in a constant state of change. Constant state of change. Resisting constantly. So he said to question everything. So I looked and I decided to do this series of work where I was going to question everything. So the first thing I decided to do, I asked myself, why do photographs have to be at right angles in rectangular frames? Why can't they be round too? So I introduced that. Second thing I did, why do photographs have to be flat? Why can't they be stacked on top of each other? Why can't they be like sculpture? And that goes back to when I did the animal sculpture and so forth. So I started questioning that. Why do photographs always have to be in white or black frames? So, and this is, oh, by the way, this is right down the street from, in Ghana, from the slave castle in Cape Coast. And so that, and the name of this piece is Cape Coast and the Nickel. It's called the Nickel because the Nickel is 5th Street, and that's where Beat It was filmed. Because the Nickel, 5th Street, like you ask somebody back in the 90s, hey, what happened to George, man? Oh man, he like landed on the Nickel, which means he's on Skid Row. So it was really important. So there's these codes and language that I put in my titles to work sort of, if you're curious, then you could dig deeper and find out what I'm talking about. And so I'm sort of going back to surrealism. I'll tell you that the cognitive schematic, I don't know if schematics is the right word. I'm going to throw away cognitive. This is how the brain operates, and this is what I'm doing. We are all built, our brains are built to identify a threat or a friend. Is it going to eat me, or am I going to eat it? Do I have to run, fight or flee? So that's the first thing we do when we walk unconsciously. Threat or friend, threat or friend. Like, dislike, all these things. We have to make these snap judgments. So what I do is I cover up things to thwart your ability to identify the person, is this a threat or not? So your brain cannot fix where you are with this image because I've covered the signifier, which is the face that you read to see if I should be afraid, I should fear, I should embrace, I should go to bed with this one person, whatever. I've frustrated that. And that's basically a surrealist gesture that Magritte was doing. And also one of my early professors, John Baldessari, was doing. So I use that as a way for your brain to have to pause. Like if your brain is a truck, or as that you have to put the clutch in. And you can't just automatically go into the next gear. You got to work it out. You got to say, what am I looking at? And that's what I want to do. I want to have a conversation with you. I don't care where the conversation goes. I just want to have a conversation so I can break you out of your automatic thinking. It's so important for me to try to break with automatic thinking. Oh, yeah, so those are little girls in Alabama waiting to see Michael. And that's, and what I did was a year before he died, I brought all these snapshots of Michael to Ghana with me. And I passed them around people in the village, where we are in Ghana, and I said, hey, do you know who this person is? We are placed in the village. It's a village called Aquadad. It's about 4 hours outside of the capital. There's no paved roads, there's no electricity, there's no gas, there's no running water. It's in the bush. And this is before cell phones. I mean, there were cell phones, but they didn't have cell reception, no smartphones. This is 2009, this is before I had iPhone. Everybody knew who Michael was. I don't know how, but everybody knew who Michael was. And I said, is this man African? And they all said, yes, he's African. And so there's this term in Ghana, when someone from the village goes to Accra, the major city, it's like leaving Iowa and going to New York City. So it's the same thing going to Accra. And they go, where's Kwesi? Oh, Kwesi's lost in Accra. That means he's left the village, gone to the big city, never to return. And so I said, Michael's lost in America. I go, he must come back. And so there's also the disappeared in Chile, where the forces that be would snatch your son in the middle of the night and so forth, and the mothers would hold a picture as testament, to that event. So I felt it was part of that. Like he's been disappeared and snatched. Hell yes. Along with a few million other black folk 400 years ago. Yeah, this one just breaks my heart. It's just a moment in the concert where it's like this, but for me it feels, this tree is in front of a slave castle also. Like I know the viewer doesn't know that, but that's there. And to me, it also looks sort of like, feels like he's about to be, in front of a firing squad, about to be lynched, or there's this intense thing. Okay. Oh, this is a picture right now, it's self-help graphics. There's an exhibition, something about brown out, I think it's called, I'm not quite sure. But it's
Black,
about,
brown, and beige.
what is it?
Black, brown, and beige.
Black, brown, and beige. Thank you. Can you tell me the premise really quick of that? Okay, but then I know, but it's the merging, it's how the black, brown, and beige of the cultures, they come together and they're not separate. It's something that, oh God, what is it? Oh God, I can't even think of the name of the person that put it together. Anyway, it's about the falseness of the separation of the African American community, the Latinx community, and those who are self-identifying as whatever, and so it's about these false barriers that are put up. And so at least that's how I understood it. So I thought this would be great to show in that context. This was at a music awards, and that's a country singer. And none of these white folks are that curly hair like black people. So I thought that was really cool. And then having literally a bush, and I separate them. I mean, that is a picture of Ghana. And so I'm trying to show, the cultures, all this separation is artificial. That's a political construct. We're people, we mix, we borrow. Okay, go a little quicker. Yeah. So then I got more with this idea of Stuart Hall and complicating photography. I thought, why do it? You should look up on your phone. This is a really cool picture. Whoever I might be talking to. So what is happening is this one photograph of Michael, and it's about how, remember how many of you guys saw was it Do the Right Thing, or was it that Spike Lee film where there was a pizza parlor?
Do the right thing.
Do the right thing. Remember how they were going, the pizza guys were going, oh, Michael Jordan's like, oh, he's okay, Michael Jordan's okay, oh, he's not black, Michael Jordan is not black, that whole scene, it kept this idea, there's the quote unquote the good Negro, you know what I mean? And so I was thinking, for many back in the day, so was he. And then, but then within us is this possibility of mayhem and so forth, and that's typified by the gangster. So this is a photograph of the gang member I took that beat it. I mean, we had real bloods, on the set, and I took some portraits, and so I just wanted to talk about that kind of duality of how representation, or how we represent the black body, and this potential for violence, or this good, bad, this whole falsehood. But it's all about representation that happens in media. So I'm doing that, and then a beautiful image in Ghana of a mangrove, and then how I was thinking of the curly hair and how I reflect that, because I do that sometimes, make these poetic gestures. And then this to me, the most important thing is this man looking at you right there on the floor. Yeah. And when you're in front of it, you feel how the boot of power, of oppression, has put this brother right down on the floor to look at you. To sort of question, how the hell did I get here? And that's because of systemic racism. That's because of institutional racism. So, structure, how culture is structured. Well, Okay, so anyway, that was on the cover of the National Portrait Galleries in London's catalog for this big exhibition they did last year called Michael Jackson Off the Wall, On the Wall, which was 46 artists, Andy Warhol, all sorts of people who've done work, Kehinde Wiley, and they put my picture on the cover, and of the 88 works, they selected 10 of mine. Because I can see you're bored, so isn't that cool? But there's like 1, 2, 3 photos. I mean, you know, just slap a frame photo on top. Oh, I get my photos in Soweto, Johannesburg, and South Los Angeles. And I also get them donated through now the LA County Museum. Found out I was doing this a few years ago, so they're like, when they take artworks and replace them with frames, they give me their frames. So now I have a picture of a gang member in a frame that used to have a David Hockney print in it. And I keep the tag of Hockney on the back when I put mine on it, so that you could, you know, we shall. Okay, ending it up. I think I want to jump into something else. Okay. I'm going to jump to something else. Okay. This is, oh, what the hell? I jumped a little quicker, too quickly?
You want to show this?
Yeah. Okay, so while that's getting up, I'll set you up. So right now, I have an exhibition in Claremont, California, which is about 40 to 50 minutes away. And it's at, should I quit maybe the other one? Maybe that's, oh, look at you, look at her. Go, go, go. Okay, okay.
You'll have to navigate it on this screen.
Oh, okay, okay, thank you. So, oh, I see now what you mean. I have to navigate it on the screen.
Yeah.
All right, so this is Euclidean Greenery. This is at Pomona College. And all right, so this is an exhibition where I take over the museum for a year. And it just opened a couple weeks ago. So this is, so that's a wall drawing that I did. And these are some of the photographs.
I thought you said you couldn't draw.
Oh, I can't. But in spite of that, I drew. And that's another thing. And guess who told me to get over it? My father. I'm in the hospital with my father, and I'm telling him what I want to do, and he goes, well, just do it. And I said, Dad, I can't draw. And he goes, you're an artist. And I said, yeah, but I'm a photographer, I can't draw. And he says, well, Miles Davis, my dad always does it, Miles Davis. And he goes like, well, Miles Davis, you know, he just goes up and he blows. So why don't you just get the chalk and blow? It's like, I'm making the big deal out of it, but my father says, no, just basically saying, conquer your fear.
Yeah.
Conquer your fear. Your fear is getting in your way. Don't, you know, he said, Miles, don't care what you think. He is pleasing himself. Oh, that sounds good. He is playing for himself. Oh, well, he did. Back in the day, he was playing for himself. So I decided, you know, I got to conquer my fear and just do this for myself. However, I was so insecure about doing regular drawn lines and so forth. I only felt secure making a circle. So I said, that's it. I'm just going to make circles. And whatever comes out is what comes out. I can do that. And then I said, I'm going to let my unconscious kick in and create something. I'm just going to set up the table for something to happen. And that's the Greenery. That's the Greenery, where I let the unconscious come in. The Euclidean is the geometric, is the control. The Euclidean is this, the gardens. The Euclidean are the gardens, and the Greenery is Africa. Euclidean, so what I did was I got a Guggenheim grant, and I went to Europe, and I photographed gardens that were associated with monarchs and imperialist governments that participated in the slave trade in Africa. and I photographed the gardens of those places. So I was in London, France, Portugal, the Netherlands, photographing these gardens, Belgium, and I photographing the Leopold's garden, and all these things because I felt that they really talked about a certain system of thought, basically controlling nature. That is the epitome of what, the garden, we're making this perfect place controlling nature. That's a fallacy. You can't control nature, but here we have these places that talk about the control of nature. And then I paired that with the sublime, with African peoples, with the African landscape, and so forth. And that's where the greenery is. Sort of, and through these tensions, I'm hoping that the viewer will start thinking about why, thinking about this relationship, thinking about this history. When I was in Ghana several years ago and I took these shots, something happened to my Canon camera, and that's what happened. My chip was corrupted. So I didn't do that. The chip actually introduced these glitches. For 3 years, I didn't look at that stuff. I just put it on my hard drive, never looked at it. Then I happened to look at it, and I said, oh my God, this is smoking. So it's like the gift, but you got to be ready to receive it.
Yeah.
So these are huge. This is about 72. Yeah, it's about 6 feet wide. Yeah, so these are pretty large things. So I'm hoping that you guys will get to Pomona College or at Claremont and check these out. Yeah, that's a really great one. That's in Kew Gardens in London, and then this is the Smoking Mountains on fire in Cape Town, South Africa. So you have this at the Luxembourg Garden in Paris, and you have a picture of a goat on top of this guy, taking it around this guy's face. So that's sort of my way of humor. Oh, where's the Versailles one? That's pretty good too. I wish I had this bigger. Anyway, this is Versailles, and it's a poster, or rather it's a sculpture of a peasant down picking up little crumbs of bread and fruit and stuff, and then you have a noble sitting on their back. They were really clear. This is on the gate, the entryway of Versailles. The Palace of Versailles has a picture of a noble sitting on the back of a peasant. Oh, the noble is carrying a cornucopia full of fruits and flowers and things, and it's spilling over. Oh, the spillover are the little things that this person's getting while she's sitting on her back, and you should see the face. It looks wretched, emaciated, just horrible. And I said, oh, damn. It's not just us. This is the 1%, and y'all. 1% and us. Wake up. Hello. Goodbye. That's it. Thank you very much.
It's pretty informal. If you have a question, just raise your hand and say it out loud.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
You think that, just as, particularly as young artists, in an era in the age of the internet, that we have a social responsibility to kind of challenge the normative, the narrative that, sorry, I have a hard time articulating this because
you're clear to me.
Because I'm a comic book artist, and it's most of the same imagery constantly repeated, and I don't necessarily know how to present something different without coming off super abrasive. How does one go about that? With just imagery alone,
Test it. Come up with the super abrasive stuff. See the reaction, and then either change it or amplify it.
Okay.
That's the only way you'll know. And then perhaps it's who's the audience. Perhaps it's abrasive to this audience, but it's not abrasive to that audience.
So So, I mean, I don't know, I want to appeal to the dominant culture. I want to appeal to the dominant culture.
Okay, you gotta get a base.
Mm.
Get a base. Yeah, but you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So with zines, I mean, that's the punk aesthetic and so forth. But yeah, I would say go as hard as you can, because there's so much noise, people will notice. So that's part of it. Yes,
Was it Ghana that you owned land in?
that's
And
correct.
Do you still go? Do you still
I'm
own
going
land?
in 3 weeks.
Oh, right. So you still have your place there?
Hope it's there. Yeah, it's an artist residency also. So artists have been going there and making work. 2 people were there this summer. Yeah, great. Yes.
I went to your talk Corona, which was incredible, and the show was incredible. And you talked about beauty and that after Calarts, you allowed yourself just to embrace beauty. Later on, you said that oftentimes the people you really want to speak to with your work might not get it the way you want them to understand it. And you spoke about to us too, this is a weapon, and you cut through. And how do you deal with this dichotomy of it?
Okay, recently I had I was taught at Calarts in the 70s and the 80s, and what I was taught was a postmodern critique, and feminists, and a feminist critique, and a Marxist critique. Anyway, there's a few different schools of thought that I was introduced to. What they all sort of agreed on was this idea of something that art's highest goal is to produce something beautiful. That is a distraction. That is a fallacy that was really amplified through the course of modernism, that there is this high ideal, which is beauty. And the way I've learned art is beauty is a distraction from what's really going on. Beauty is like a little drug, and you get your hit on it, and you can, then everything else sort of fades away. You can just languish and enjoy and lap up beauty. So we were taught, no, go against beauty, and so forth. As I got older, I'm talking about now 30 years older from when I was studying, I realized that beauty is the honey. Beauty is the sweetness that I can get a viewer in, and then I want to hit them with meaning. And I want to hit them with confusion. But I want them to enter. I can't get them into my tableau, into my scape, into my image. I have to lure them in, and I want to lure them in with beauty. So if it was Muhammad Ali, I want to rope it up with beauty. Get them in, and then I want to give them something that is a question. I don't want my work to supply an answer. I want to propose a question. Because by proposing a question, I'm engaging an intellectual mental dialogue with the viewer. Like, what the hell am I looking at? What is this about? Why is this happening? Now I'm getting you to think, and thinking is possibilities. So I'm not reconfirming what you already know, I'm introducing possibilities, because that's how I think things can change. If we can't imagine a future that's different, we are doomed to be slaves. So it's really important for me to ignite that dialogue. Now I had a couple of, like, Art Forum magazine and some other magazine, the computer show I had recently, kept saying how the work is so subtle and it's so multi-layered. Many viewers may not understand the really deep, critical conversation that I'm trying to have. And so now I've really been thinking about that, because actually 3 reviews, Freeze Magazine, another magazine, another, they all said, yeah, I mean, you don't know it on the surface. So now what I'm doing is I'm making my titles. I'm putting serious signifiers in my title. So my last title was Narcissus and Hubris Split the Bill. And then in parentheses it says, let the children pay. And it's a picture of a desert, and the photograph is split. So, and then there's 2, that's an African desert, and then 2 really posh gardens, images. So I'm thinking, maybe Anthropocene, you might think about global, you might try and do that. And then I have another one, which it says, Manifest Destiny's Dance of Conquest. And there's an African scene and so forth. So just to get people to start, pushing, so that's how I'm dealing with it. But I don't want to be didactic. I don't want to break it down into language. And I don't want to make a statement. I want to pose a question.
Can I ask about also, are you now photographing things specifically? Is it all archive or is it a mixture?
No, because I got that Guggenheim, which allowed me to go and do this project, which is, of course, is photographing gardens that were enriched through the slave trade and African colonization. So I'm very proud. Is this floating signifier. So when I go to the archive, depending on what picture I put it with, I can change the meaning of that photograph completely. It's malleable. It's rubber. It's plastic. It has multiple forms. So the benefit is going through something and going, ooh, you guys want to go crazy? Go back into the family album. Look at it with a critical eye. Who's with who? What's going on? Look at it from a different point of view alone. Not with anybody else. And look at it critically to see what relationships. Look at the edge. Look at the expressions. Because we're taught just to look at the center and look at the dot. Look at the back. Look at around the subjects. What's happening. Look what's happening in those family meetings and so forth. Some things will be revealed. Yes?
I'm a huge fan of surrealism, and I always wonder when someone else creates surreal pieces, I always wonder what makes people choose that form of expression.
I choose it because my work is so complex that I know that everyone in this room understands the language, the visual language called surrealism. I know they understand it because they watch television and film, and they watch commercials, and they watch music videos. All that stuff are using tropes or styles of surrealism. Editing, that's a surrealist jump cut, where you go from this scene to that scene, that's a surrealist gesture. So I'm using the language, the visual language of surrealism, because I know everyone's fluent in it, and they'll recognize it. So when I put something in front of a face, they go, yeah, okay, I get that. It's important for me to make work that doesn't speak down to my viewer and doesn't make them feel like they don't get it. They may not get the whole picture, but they know, oh yeah, no, that's whack, or that's this. They can have it. They can start a dialogue.
Do you feel like it's a way of making that conversation less abrasive?
I got to, if I'm too abrasive, I hadn't thought of it as less abrasive, but I just think it's a way to get into your head. Because it's the big question mark. Because surrealism is a question. All the surrealist stuff is a question. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, I think that your ability to sort of interslice history, people's history, your work is pretty phenomenal. I'm just wondering, I imagine you have a lot of questions about a lot of things that are happening right now. If you think of contemporary cyclical forms of oppressive behaviors and colonization and so forth. I just am curious, right now, what are you working on in terms of some of these things in the world that are happening now? I would appreciate you willing to share.
Well, I think that's why I made that piece that I explained that's critiquing the Anthropocene.
Yes.
That's what's going on now. And heating up and putting it on a pedestal and talking about what we worship. Like, oh, look what we worship. We worship the destruction of the earth.
Right.
So, in that way, and for me, the whole idea of mental colonialism is ongoing.
Yeah, I suppose I asked that too because I want to either one. It's
I would say maybe, yeah. Okay, this is art.
yes.
Art is this thing that I cannot fully describe, that I engage in. All I want to do with my art, I am the audience of my art. It has to hit me, it has to hum. And it has to make me go, what? But it's humming. Well, I understand the hum, but I still got the what? And when I can make a hum and still go, what? You get me on this? Because the hum is the art. Where and you know what else is the hum? I'm going to get you for sure. The hum is the art. And you know what? There's no greater feeling than when you make something and you go, oh shit. I don't care how many people, I don't care if your tightest friend doesn't get it. That's fine. I don't care if your wife, husband, lover doesn't get it. That's fine. Because you know it's humming. And I make the work for the hum. And I know that I want to have a voice and a dialogue. So I know there's going to be a critical component. So I don't have a question next. That's who I am.
Yes.
So I can't tell you what I'm going to do next. Because I find when I try to do that,
Yes.
the hum goes lower. And I want a high vibrational hum.
Right.
If you dig what I mean?
I do.
I don't completely trust my brain. I don't let my brain call all the shots. That's neck up. Gregory's neck down. I want my body in the mix. So thinking. I want body thoughts,
Right.
not just this thought.
Right, it goes back to.
That's Euclidean.
Captured our release.
Thank you.
Can you tell me your most favorite type of art to display, and also, how long did you work with Michael Jackson for?
79 to 83, I got fired on the beaded set.
Real stories?
Oh, it's not enough time. I got fired on the beaded. Oh yeah, the story is this. That's the story. Well, so the back of his head. 79 to 83. And what was the first question?
I was going to ask you, what is your favorite type of art to display?
Man, I can't answer because there's so many.
You can give us an example of.
Performance art, I think is really incredible.
Right.
I love Dada. I love socio-political art. This guy named, what's Hammond's first name? There's his brother named David Hammond. And if I had 1/10 of his talent, I'd be very, very, very happy. That's somebody you should check out. I mean, he speaketh the truth loudly. He just had a big show over the summer or in the spring, but he's all over it. You'll find David Hammond is quite big, Hammons, and he's always it's a level of critique. He was the first person to refuse to be in the Whitney Biennial.
To refuse what?
To be in the biggest art exhibition in America. It's called the Whitney Museum Biennial. It's a very, very prestigious thing. They asked him to be in the 60s, I think. Had to be in the 60s, maybe 60s or 70s. He refused to be in it. And you know what one of his greatest art pieces is?
Which one?
He's in Harlem, or maybe he's in Midtown, New York. He's got a stand, and he's selling snowballs. Snowballs. The level of absurdity. And then at Housing Word, he had a beautiful meat skull, on a figurine, and it had a splash of red paint on it.
Interesting.
I mean, his critique is really heavy and absurd. He made a piece. He made a Christmas tree from all of the hair he gathered in Harlem barbershop. So we put all these African tendrils on it, and it's a Christmas tree of African hair.
Oh wow,
The brother's, he's in outer space and firmly on the ground. And with that, I'll have some cookies. Oh, last one. Oh man, sorry? Okay, one more time. Oh man, reading philosophy and reading theory helped me get out of my it helped me get out of my lane. All my thoughts were on the 101 freeway. I'm just driving on that 101 freeway. Philosophy and theory gave me all these different off-ramps I could take. Otherwise, I would just completely be circling the city in the 101. Do you get my metaphor?